Hey, welcome to day 17. It's the beginning of another week. It's also the end of spring break. So, parents, I'm praying for you. Parents, I ask you to pray for me. If you don't have kids at home, pray for those who do. If you have kids at home, pray for all the other people who have kids at home. Last week, we spent a lot of time talking about self denial, restraining from the things of the flesh, crucifying the flesh. We talked about fasting to a decent extent. But the question becomes, to what end? You may remember way back on day 2 that we talked about how fasting, a spiritual fast, is also feasting. And if you don't remember talking about that, because that was quite a while ago, hey, I don't fault you for that. Don't worry about it. This is your reminder. Way back on day 2, we talked about how spiritual fasting is also feasting. There, now you remember. You see, self denial, whether it be through fasting or another means, can't just be about taking things out of our lives, removing things from our lives. It has to be about putting something back in. In Matthew chapter 12, we read a teaching of Jesus that was recorded to where he talks about an impure spirit that leaves a person. And this impure spirit leaves the person and it roams through the arid lands and eventually it comes back. And he uses the analogy of a house, that it comes back to the house, the person, and it finds that it's unoccupied, it's been swept clean, and it is raring to go. Like it is ready for somebody to move back in. So it goes out and it finds 7 of its friends and it says, "Hey, we've got a spot to live." And it brings them in, and the person, the house, is worse off than it ever was before. Translation: if all we do is deny ourselves of the things like we talked about last week, if all we do is crucify the flesh and we don't replace it with something, then all of those things are going to come back and it's going to be worse off than we were before. Maybe you've actually experienced something like this, and maybe it wasn't even necessarily in a spiritual realm, but you've experienced something like this. It's why crash diets that we love to go on often end in binge eating. Or it's why when we just cut everything off and we remove impure sexual immorality, porn, those kinds of things, when we remove those things from our lives, it's why so often eventually there is a flood of indecent material that we find in front of us, and we sit there and we're not even really sure how we fell back into those habits. And many times it's because we thought that we could remove those things and get rid of them without replacing them with something else. And for the record, it's not just Christians or spiritual people who believe this to be true and who see this truth. Even atheist psychologists will tell you that if you're going to remove a bad habit from your life, you have to replace it with a good habit. And that's why fasting also must be feasting. That's why self-denial also must be self-indulgence. Because when we remove, even temporarily, something like food from our lives, it is imperative that we replace it with something healthy. So last week was kind of like information download about self-denial and, in particular, fasting. This week, let's feast. This week, maybe there was something that came up last week that you realized this is something that I need to do, that I need to practice self-denial. Well, this week, practice the feasting with it. Jesus was recorded in Matthew chapter 4 as saying, "A man shall not live on bread alone, but on every word that comes from the mouth of God," which is, again, I think perfect for the season that we're in, as we are talking about fasting. And so man cannot live on bread alone. We fast from bread, but we live on the word that comes from the mouth of God. So this week, let's feast on the word as we prepare for Easter coming up in less than a month. I'd like to invite you today to feast on Psalm 19. I'm not going to read it for you because of time, but what I am going to invite you to do is, as you prepare to read it, as you pull out either your paper Bible or an app or however it is that you're going to do this, as you prepare to read it, pray that God would reveal himself to you through it. And then don't just read it once throughout the course of the day. If you've got a bunch of time right now, hey, read it multiple times right now and pray that each time. Don't speed through it. Read a verse at a time and sit and ponder on that. Read a chunk at a time and sit and ponder on that. As the day goes on, instead of pulling out social media or Amazon shopping, pull it back out and read it again and pray again. God, reveal yourself to me through this Psalm 19. Feast on the word of God, and may you not go hungry. I'll see you tomorrow.